Hey friends, what's up? Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be doing an in-depth review of the new Huda Beauty Blush Filter Palettes slash Quads. I do have all three of them, so I'm going to be doing a blush demo live, and then I will also be showing you guys swatches of every palette and the other looks that I have done with these palettes so that you can see how the product looks on the cheek. I'm going to talk about application, wear time, all of that good stuff. So if you're interested in these, it might be a great video for you to watch to help you narrow it down to one or rule it out completely. I am just getting home from work, so the makeup has been on and it has been worn, so it's not looking as fresh as usual, but as you can see, the blush that I had on today is still blushing. Yeah, if you're new here, welcome. If you enjoy this video, feel free to subscribe before you go. And if at any time you find that this video is helpful or you just want to support the channel, please do go ahead and hit the thumbs up button. It really helps push my content out to others and lets YouTube know that it's enjoyable. And yeah, let's go ahead and jump on into the live demo. So for the demo, I'm going to be using the Rose Berry Quad, and I'm just going to be using this shade here up top and then topping with this shade. So I'm going to throw my brush around. I'm going to just tap into this like two-ish times, 2-3 times, and apply. Boom. Going in over my base, unset foundation. I have my bronzer on, but I haven't set anything, no powder or anything. Gonna dab over this one lightly, really quick again. And yeah. So now I'm just gonna tap into this highlight shade here. I just do like one tap into that. And I'm gonna just like apply it on top, just tap it over the top. And I feel like it gives a really nice glowy shift, and you have the pigment, so it brings the color forward even more. I don't know, I really like it. And I just realized the overhead lights behind me are on, so hopefully you guys are still able to see this okay. There will be a lot more swatches and photos coming, but this is the only demo. I did all the swatches in natural light and the photos in natural light, but the pictures of me wearing the blush are in studio lighting, so just keep that in mind. There's some different lighting going on, but yeah, let's get into it. Okay, so this is what the final look looks like. I did go over powder my face, and then I just tapped in very lightly. I was tap, and then I dusted that back across over the cheeks just to bring that color back a little bit, because I find when I powder, it tampers down what's underneath a bit. So I usually always go over a skosh with something to bring the color back. And yeah, I think it looks great. I think this formula is so interesting, how it's very like present but not over the top. Like, I don't know, we'll get into it more. I'll stop yapping now. Okay, since I used the Roseberry Quad in the demo, I just want to go ahead and roll on with this palette and my thoughts. I'll go ahead and insert some swatches over here. These swatches have been built up to try and show you the true color or tone if you were to build them up. I find overall that these are like a medium pigmented formula. I can build them up, but also I'm not afraid to go in with them for fear of overpigmentation. I personally find that I can get the look that I want with just like a dusting of it. So take that with a grain of salt when it comes to the swatches. They are built up so that you can see like the true potential. This is what the Roseberry Quad looks like up close. It will look a little bit different in some pictures, but you guys know by now, depending on lighting is what stuff looks like. So I'm just out here doing my best. As you saw in the demo, we used this shade on its own paired with this shade. And in typical Huda fashion, I feel like this tone that looks like it's gonna be more of like a neutrally brown kind of situation pulls fairly pink. If you've had her eyeshadow palettes, then you know the struggle of thinking you're gonna get a brown tone blush and then it's pink. That is exactly what this reminded me of when I first used this shade. I was like, Huda, girl, we still girl. So yeah, I did like this shade. However, it is a little bit more pink than I would have liked or was even expecting. The next look that I'm going to show you guys, I used a combination of shades. I used these two shades right here, which created a fairly rosy look, I will say. And then I topped it with the highlighter in the palette. This is meant to be, you can use it as a highlighter, a blush topper, or even like a mix-in if you want to swirl around and in. That's kind of what I did with this. I kind of was just like tap, tap, tap to kind of see where we got. I definitely think this formula is too pigmented to just swirl around. Like, I personally don't want that vibrant of a blush. But so I just used it more as like a topper slash highlight here. And I think it is really pretty. Honestly, like, you get a little bit of, it's not a strong duochrome, but a little duochrome action. I don't know if perhaps we would be able to see it. See a little bit there, how you get that from like gold to more of like a berry shift. And normally I'm not someone who's like super into that on my cheeks, but I do that on my cheeks sometimes. But I actually just find it to be so pretty. I really like the highlight formula in these quads. It is like almost like dense, but it just like melts into the skin so nice. It is so sparkly, and you can see it by the time you get to the end of the day, which I personally really like. Now for the third look in this palette, I just used this shade here, and then I topped it with that highlight again. And this personally was my favorite color combination out of the Rose Berry Quad. It had just a little bit more of that warm brown undertone instead of being so far rose berry. I overall found this quad to be very pink, almost to the point of like a lot of the looks that I did with it did feel pretty similar. I wish that some of these would have pulled like a little bit more mauve. But maybe again, it's something where if I would have built it up to its full potential, I would have seen a bigger difference in the shades. That's what I'm thinking. I'm just doing a very light dusting of them. I think they were pretty. I just thought that this would be more like, I don't know, like I know it says roseberry, so I don't know why I was thinking that, but maybe like in the initial photos, I thought that like these two would pull a little bit more on that like warm brown side of a rose or a berry, but they really just pull pretty pink. So this was actually the palette that I thought would be my favorite, but it ends up not being my favorite. So we'll just say that. And it's not because of formula, it's just because of the way that the shades end up breaking down. I do feel like this formula is great for a powder. It's really long lasting, buildable, easy to work with. As you saw in the video, I go in with the powder on top of my foundation. I don't set my face first, I just go straight in. And I haven't had any issues with blending or anything like that, which I prefer because I don't like to set my whole face first. I just don't like to. So I do like that it works out that way. But yeah, that was the demo and my thoughts on the Rose Quad. Okay, next up is the Baby Pink Quad, which I was like, oh my gosh, I'm never gonna use this because woo-wee, she is a bright girly. I did find this quad out of the three to be the least pigmented off the bat. I felt like this one gave me a little bit more room to play with the buildability. I don't know if that's a real word, but I felt like it gave me more room to play with that and build things up, which I personally like. I love a buildable blush. It's just, I like to apply makeup, so I'm like, more is more. So if it's less pigmented, you get to put more on. That's how I think about it anyways. But I definitely thought that this one would be something that I wouldn't use and would potentially like declutter after I did this review for you guys, but I actually found myself really enjoying it. It's not my favorite of the three by any means, but it was much more wearable than I anticipated it being. In my first look, I went in with 3 shades. I used the 2 mattes over here and mixed them. And then I topped it with the highlighter, which again, these are just so pretty, you guys. I literally, I don't know. I love the blush topper highlighter things in here. I think they're so, so gorgeous. And as you can see in the photo, I went in with just like a really light dusting of this, and I just felt like it melted into my skin really nicely, creating like a more natural looking flush. Like obviously I'm wearing blush, but it wasn't like wham bam stark in your face. And I think the undertone of this works a lot better for me than a lot of other bright pink blushes that I've tried. And I surprisingly really liked it. Same for look number 2 with this. I literally just used this bright shade here and then the topper, and I loved it. I didn't think that it looked over the top, bright pink or anything like that. It was a brighter pink, but it almost like a pinky coral a little bit, that one was. And I don't know, I felt like it warmed to the skin so nice. And I feel like these make such a big difference. And I will also say these highlighter shades in here, they are quite pigmented. So I just go in with 1 tap and apply it on like both sides. Sometimes I tap back into the other side, but they are like, they do have pigment. They're not a sheer topper, but I feel like it brings the color out more on the cheeks. So if you're finding that you're not liking the level of pigmentation, I feel like you can also add this and it'll just bring it to the surface. I also feel like it takes the blush to the next level, whereas it might look a little flat with the mattes, but then once you put this highlight on, it really brings the juice back. Like I said, pleasantly surprised with this one. And then the one that unexpectedly ended up being my favorite was the Toasty Peach Quad. I don't really gravitate toward peach blush anymore, and I haven't really for a while. So I was pretty surprised when I was like, I think that I like this one the best. The first look that I did with it, I used a mixture of these 2 shades over here, and then I topped it with this. As you can see, this was a much like peachier, brighter blush. This is actually the one that I'm wearing today. You can really see the peach in this, but I don't feel like it's overdone, which is nice. Like, I don't know. I just feel like, and I feel like the highlight comes into play here, how it shifts. Like this one is like a peachy, but like rose gold, like very, very unique. It's very interesting. So I do like this look. I think it tied in really great with the eye look today. The blush did. Really enjoyed it. But my favorite combination was this one, using just this shade and then using this right here as a topper. This by far was my favorite combination of all the quads, just because it's really like more in my comfort zone of what I wear. It was a peach, but it was like a very brown based peach. So my cheek did look very like toasty, peach toasted, if you will. But it looked very warm, toasty, all the things that I go for and love to wear. So I definitely see myself getting a ton of use out of that combination. It is just so beautiful. I loved it. Now, like I said, this one was my favorite. And I will say throughout the quads, formula-wise, they do seem to be consistent. Every single one of these was long wearing, easy to work with, blendable. I didn't have any issues with them. I will say I think that Toasty Peach and Roseberry are a bit more pigmented than the Baby Pink quad, but I think really that's the only difference in formulation. So I think it's a great formula. I really just think it comes down to what color story you're gonna like the best. I also felt like I guess I wish for like 4 shades in the palette. I wish we would have gotten a little bit more variety, but I think that the purpose or the theme was to be a little bit more monochromatic. So if you're thinking like, oh, there's too many similar shades in here, then I think that that's totally valid. If you're not interested in that, like I do think that's like a valid gripe, but I think that that was like intentional. And I also think that you will get more differentiation in the shades if you build them up to a more bold cheek. I did a very light cheek with all of these, which is why I wanted to show you what they looked like in a little bit bolder of a setting with the swatches. Now, these Blushlighters do retail for $43, which is a little over 10 bucks a shade. Do with that what you will, but I did want to mention it. And it looks like on Sephora, the Roseberry quad is already out of stock. It does say that these are a limited edition on Sephora, but I've watched a lot of Huda's marketing and I don't recall her saying that these were not permanent. So that's something to think about as well. I also know Huda Beauty always does like a Cyber Craze sale in the fall, so these will potentially be discounted then. If you do want to check any of it out, I will link them down below. At the end of the day, I just hope that this was helpful by seeing the colors swatched on my cheeks, on my arms, the application, my feedback, because really that's my goal, is to just help you decide, like, even if that means you were thinking about buying it and now you don't want it. Like, that is honestly great. Let me save you money. But yeah, so that's all I have. I hope this video was helpful. If it was, don't forget to give it a thumbs up, and I will see you guys in my next video. Bye.